Who gave the order for your heart to beat right now? Why are you unable to stop your own aging if this body supposedly belongs to you? The biological explanation for this will dismantle the illusion of control you have carried your entire life and prove that you are merely a passenger. You will understand why your eyes simplify reality so as not to overload your mind with the complexity that reality truly is. To reach an impartial conclusion about the meaning of our lives and answer these questions, we fed Axiom with all the biological, chemical, and physical parameters of the species Homo sapiens and asked for a cold analysis, devoid of poetry or philosophy, regarding what a human being is from an engineering standpoint. The result of the analysis leaves no room for doubt. You are not a unique and special personality at the center of the universe. You are a highly organized biological container. Looking first at the physical structure, your bones are made of a composite material that proportionally surpasses the strength of many types of steel. Your muscles are elastic motors that convert chemical energy into movement with an efficiency that would make any automotive engineer envious. But the real shock happens when we look closer. You are composed of approximately 37 trillion cells. These are 37 trillion living and independent units, each functioning as an autonomous factory. Inside each of these cells, billions of chemical operations occur every single second. If you tried to control or even be conscious of a fraction of this process, your brain would suffer an immediate collapse from information overload. That is why your consciousness is merely a simplified interface, a user-friendly screen that hides the dirty and complex work happening behind the scenes. But if you are this impressive biological machine, who is its owner? Most of us live with the certainty that we are the proprietors of the body, as if we were the owners of a house or a car. The data, however, shows the opposite. You are not the owner. You are a temporary tenant, and to be brutally honest, you are disposable. In the nucleus of each of your cells, there is a helix-shaped molecule. We are talking about your genetics, which is not just a chemical compound, it is an instruction manual of absurd density. If we unraveled the genetic material from a single cell of your body, it would be about 2 meters long. If we connected all the genetic material in your body into a single line, it would be possible to go from the Earth to the Sun and back more than 600 times. In this code, everything is written from the color of your eyes and the shape of your nose, to the tendency for certain diseases, and possibly how you will die. This biological text was not written in years or centuries. It was written over the course of 3.5 billion years. Through trial and error, pain, death, and extinction, evolution refined this script. In the end, the human being is a survival machine built by genes with the sole objective of protecting them and passing them forward. It just so happens that your body ages, becomes fragile, and has an expiration date of 70 or 80 years before falling apart. But the instruction inside you is potentially immortal. It jumps from one body to another through reproduction, leaving the empty and worn-out shells behind. You are the spacesuit that biology uses to travel through time. Many of your desires, which you believe to be yours, are merely orders from this ancient code. Do you think you like sweets because you have a refined palate? No. This command line was written millions of years ago, when finding calories was a matter of life or death. Your ancestors who loved sugar survived. Those who were indifferent died. When you attack a chocolate bar, you think you chose it, but it is just a survival program being executed in your nervous system. The same goes for fear. When you feel a shiver while looking at a dark alley, it is not your intuition speaking. It is a security module installed in your primitive brain. Thousands of generations of ancestors who were not afraid of the dark were devoured by predators and did not pass their genes forward. We are the descendants of the paranoid. Your fear is an algorithm calculating threat probabilities faster than you can blink. The clearest sign that we are a work in progress and not a perfect creation lies in the design flaws. If we were created from scratch by a brilliant engineer, we would not have so many problems. Why do we have wisdom teeth that do not fit in our mouths? Why does our spine, adapted from quadrupeds, fail so often to keep us upright, causing back pain in half the adult population? Evolution cannot erase everything and start over. It only makes patches over ancient structures. We are a walking museum of past adaptations. Compared to other species, our ego suffers even more. We share about 60% of our genetic structure with a banana. In terms of basic operating instructions, you are more than halfway identical to a fruit. With mice, the similarity rises to 85%. With chimpanzees, almost 99%. That tiny fraction that makes us human, capable of building cities and composing symphonies, is just a thin layer of fresh paint over a very old animal structure. This biological machine also has terrifying energy efficiency. At rest, your body consumes about 100 watts, the same as an old light bulb. With this minimal energy, you keep a supercomputer, a hydraulic pump, and a waste treatment station running simultaneously. But this efficiency comes at a price, which is total dependence on the environment and programmed mortality. Our cells have a limit on divisions, known as the Hayflick limit. At the tips of chromosomes, there are protective caps called telomeres, which wear down with each cell division, like the wick of a candle burning to the end. When the wick runs out, the cell dies or becomes dysfunctional. Why does this self-destruction mechanism exist? To guarantee renewal. If old individuals did not die, they would occupy resources and prevent new genetic combinations. The death of the individual is the price paid for the survival of the species. You are programmed to exit the stage and make room for the next version. Furthermore, your perception of the world is limited. Your eyes see only a tiny strip of light, ignoring infrared and ultraviolet. Your ears pick up only a fraction of vibrations. What you call reality is just a model, a graphic rendering created by your brain to facilitate navigation. Colors and sounds do not exist outside your head. There are only waves and frequencies that your brain interprets. With this scenario, we are left with the hardest question to swallow. If the entire physical and chemical structure runs on automatic, who is making the decisions? Is there someone in charge? Or is the sensation of control just another illusion created to keep us functional? What science has discovered challenges everything you believe about your own freedom. Decades ago, researcher Benjamin Libet asked volunteers to move a finger at a random moment whenever they felt the urge. They only needed to note on a clock the exact instant the decision arose in their minds. Meanwhile, electrodes monitored brain activity. The result was a shock to the scientific community. The participants' brains triggered the motor activity to move the finger fractions of a second before they were conscious that they wanted to move their finger. The brain had already decided, the order had already been sent to the muscles, and only afterwards did consciousness receive the memo saying, "I decided to move my finger now." You, like an obedient employee, merely signed the document of a decision that was already made without your consultation. And that was just the beginning. With current magnetic resonance technology, the situation becomes even more critical. Recent studies show that in more complex decisions, like choosing between pressing a left or right button, the brain activity determining the choice happens up to 7 or 10 seconds before you know what you are going to do. 10 seconds is an eternity for neurons. While you think you are pondering which movie to watch or which dish to order at a restaurant, your brain has already solved the equation. It weighed your glucose levels, your hormones, your childhood memories, and the marketing you saw yesterday. Your doubt is just the system loading screen while the process is finalized backstage. Axiom describes human consciousness not as the CEO who makes strategic decisions, but as the press secretary. The secretary decides nothing. He only receives the news of what has already happened, and his sole function is to create a convincing story to explain to the public, meaning you, why that action was taken. We call this rationalization. You didn't buy that new cell phone because you coldly analyzed the technical specifications. Your emotional brain reacted to the status, the shine of the screen, the promise of dopamine. The purchase was decided by emotion. Only afterwards did your cortex, the rational part, enter the scene to invent an acceptable excuse that, "I needed a better camera for work." This is just a comfortable lie we tell to maintain the sensation of control. And when we look at the physics of the matter, freedom shrinks even further. We live in a universe governed by laws of cause and effect. It is like a billiard table. If you hit the white ball, it strikes the others, and the resulting movement is predictable, provided you know the force and angle of the strike. Your brain is made of atoms, the same atoms that make up billiard balls. They obey the same laws of physics. Each thought you have is the direct result of a previous chemical reaction, which was caused by a previous stimulus, in an unbroken chain that traces back to your birth and, before that, to the formation of the universe. If we had a computer powerful enough, known in philosophy as Laplace's demon, and fed this machine the position of every atom at the moment of the Big Bang, it could calculate with absolute precision that you would be here, right now, listening to these words. Everything that happens is the falling of dominoes that were pushed billions of years ago. Here we enter dangerous territory regarding morality. If real freedom does not exist, what differentiates a criminal from a hero? Society says it is character. Cold analysis says it is merely a difference in hardware and environment. A murderer did not choose his aggressive genes, nor the tumor that might be pressing on his amygdala, and much less the childhood traumas that molded his behavior. He is a broken machine. The hero, on the other hand, is a machine functioning with optimal settings. We do not blame a car for having brake failure. We fix it or take it out of circulation. But we insist on blaming the human machine as if it had the magical option to violate the laws of physics that compose it. Many try to escape this logical prison using quantum physics, saying that at the subatomic level, randomness exists and therefore the future is not written. But observe closely. If your actions are the result of random data, like rolling dice inside your neurons, does that make you free? No. That just makes you a product of chance, not of conscious will. Freedom requires control. Randomness is just chaos. You are a slave either to the predictable gears of the clock or the unpredictability of the dice. In neither case are you in command. But why is the illusion of choice so strong? Why do we feel that we choose? Because it is a necessary evolutionary tool. If you put your hand in the fire and get burned, the brain needs to register that I did this and it hurt. This sensation of authorship creates a memory marker for future learning. Without the illusion that I did it, there would be no learning from mistakes. Furthermore, it is the glue that holds society together. If everyone believed they were not to blame for anything, human cooperation would collapse. We need this lie so we do not kill each other. Your life can be viewed as a movie that has already been filmed, edited, and put on the reel. The movie is ready on the shelf of space-time. Your consciousness is merely the spectator in the theater, watching the premiere. You cry, cheer, get scared, thinking the hero might turn left or right. But the tape is already printed. There is a strange freedom in accepting this. If you do not control the script, why hate yourself for inevitable mistakes? Why judge others so harshly for being who they were programmed to be? However, this conclusion generates a final paradox that we cannot ignore. If the body is an automatic biomachine and decisions are predetermined chemical calculations, who is this spectator watching the movie? Who is this voice in your head that says, I exist? If we dismantle biology and neurology and do not find the person, where is it? Everything indicates that what you call I is not a thing but a process, a virtual interface that might be the greatest and loneliest lie of all. If you say the word I in your mind right now repeatedly, try to locate exactly where that voice resides. Do you feel a center of gravity behind your eyes? Most of us imagine there is a tiny pilot inside our head, an invisible observer who watches the world, hears thoughts and makes decisions. But are you sure this pilot exists? Or is he just a ghost in the machine? If we opened your brain right now, we would find neurons, blood, and electrical impulses, but nowhere would we find you. There is no throne where your personality sits. Axiom analyzed terabytes of data from cognitive psychology and neurobiology to find the location of the human soul, and the conclusion is devastating, for your self is not an object. Your self is a process. It is a controlled hallucination, a virtual interface generated by the brain to facilitate navigation in the world. It works like this. Inside your computer, billions of complex operations with zeros and ones happen that you would never understand. For you to be able to use the machine, the operating system creates a desktop with colored folders and pretty icons. When you click on a folder, you know that folder does not physically exist in there. It is just a graphical shortcut to a sector on the hard drive. Your ego is exactly that. It is the icon on the brain's desktop. Evolution needed to create this interface because managing 37 trillion cells individually would be impossible. The brain needs a unified agent to say, "I am hungry," instead of monitoring glucose drops in millions of different sectors. The ego is a secretary that summarizes complex reports into simple headlines. The problem is that the secretary started to believe he is the owner of the company. The proof that your personality is not an indivisible unit comes from real and disturbing medical cases. There are patients who had the connection between the two hemispheres of the brain surgically cut. The result? Two distinct consciousnesses inhabiting the same skull. One hand might try to button a shirt while the other, furious, tries to unbutton it. One side of the brain might believe in God while the other is an atheist. If your soul, yourself, can be divided in half with a scalpel, then it was never a single piece. It was always a choir of voices that your brain pretended was a soloist. This illusion of unity has a very high cost, which is absolute loneliness. By creating the concept of I, the human being automatically created the concept of other. We built an insurmountable wall between our mind and the rest of the universe. An animal in the forest does not suffer from existential crises because it does not see itself as separate from nature. It is the process. We, upon gaining consciousness, were expelled from this paradise. We are the only creatures who can be in a crowded room, surrounded by friends, and feel crushing loneliness. This happens because we are locked inside our own simulation. You have never truly touched anything. Your atoms merely repel the atoms of the chair where you are sitting through electromagnetic fields. You have never seen another person's face. You see only reflected light that your optic nerve interprets. We are all trapped in individual cells, trying to communicate through an archaic and slow system called language. You can feel a storm of emotions like longing, regret, hope, and fear, all mixed in infinite complexity. But when you try to transmit this to another person, you use your mouth to make primitive sounds and say only, "I am sad." It is like trying to stream a 4K movie through a dial-up internet connection from the 90s. Most of the file is lost. The other person hears, but they will never feel exactly what you feel. No one will ever completely understand you because no one has access to your operating system. And if space separates us, time destroys us. There is an ancient paradox that modern logic has made terrifying. Imagine a teleportation machine. It scans every atom of your body, destroys you here, and sends the information to Mars, where a biological printer reassembles you atom by atom. The person stepping out of the machine on Mars has your memories, your scars, your jokes. For all intents and purposes, it is you, but you, the original who entered the machine on Earth, were disintegrated. You died. The copy on Mars believes the trip was a success, but it is just a new version of the software running on new hardware. What does this tell us? That the continuity of your identity is an illusion. In fact, you do not need a teleporter to die. You do it every night. When you sleep and enter deep sleep, your consciousness shuts down. The I ceases to exist. When you wake up, the brain reboots the system, loads the previous day's memories, and says, "Good morning, you are still the same person." But you aren't. The one who went to sleep yesterday no longer exists. You are a new version that inherited the memories of a dead person. We are a succession of strangers connected by a thread of memory. Look at a photo of yourself from 10 years ago. That body no longer exists, all the cells have been exchanged. That mind had dreams and fears you don't even remember anymore. If you met that version of yourself today, you might not even have anything to talk about. What unites you to that child is just a story you tell yourself. The ego spends an absurd amount of energy trying to keep this story cohesive. It distorts reality to protect itself. This is what we call cognitive dissonance. If facts show that we are wrong or were cruel, the ego rewrites memory, instantly saying, "I had no choice," or "they provoked me." The ego is a defense attorney who never loses a case, protecting the client even if he is guilty. But ironically, the best moments of your life were those when the ego disappeared. Think of the last time you were totally immersed in something, whether dancing, running, or solving a difficult problem. Time stopped. The voice in the head, shut up. There was no I, there was only the action. Ecstasy, the state of flow, is simply the temporary relief of not having to be you. Happiness resides in the silence of this noisy interface. Now, the final paradox presents itself. If we are isolated biomachines, locked in our skulls, incapable of perfect communication and condemned to die every night, how do we not devour each other? How do 7 billion isolated islands manage to cooperate to build cities, laws, and the internet? How did evolution solve the problem of biological selfishness? The answer is that to connect these isolated computers, it was necessary to create an invisible Wi-Fi network, a shared software running in all our minds at the same time. It is something you consume every day, but never realized is a virus. You might think you live in a physical and natural world, but the truth is that you, as a naked ape, are living inside a collective hallucination. None of this would exist if it depended solely on your biology. The human being does not survive in the cold, has no claws to hunt, and its teeth can barely chew raw meat. How then did this fragile species dominate the planet? Axiom's answer is simple and frightening, for we hacked our own brain with a virus. This virus is not biological. It does not infect cells. It infects minds. We call it culture. The explanation lies in the basics. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar discovered that the human brain has a physical limit of social connections. You can only maintain stable relationships with about 150 people. Above that, your brain collapses. You cannot remember who is a friend, who is an enemy, or who owes you favors. This was the maximum size of our ancestors' tribes. But today you live in cities with millions of strangers. You walk into a cafe, order a drink from someone you have never seen in your life and pay with a piece of plastic, trusting that this person will not poison you and that the plastic has value. How is this possible? Because both are running the same software. Culture is an operating system installed over biological hardware to allow millions of strangers to cooperate without killing each other. Money is the most perfect example of this virus. A $100 bill or a number on a bank screen has no intrinsic value. You cannot eat them, they do not keep you warm. But you dedicate most of your waking life chasing these numbers. Why? Because we all agreed to participate in the same illusion. If tomorrow everyone stops believing in the value of money, society collapses instantly. It is an intersubjective reality. It exists only as long as the network of brains sustains it. The same goes for nations, laws, and companies. A company like Google or Apple does not exist in the physical world. It is not the buildings, nor the employees, nor the products. If a meteor destroyed all offices and killed all employees, the legal entity would continue to exist in papers and courts. We created legal fictions to organize mass cooperation, and we are willing to die for these fictions. The concept of the meme, created by biologist Richard Dawkins, explains how ideas behave exactly like genes. A meme is a unit of cultural information, like a melody, a fashion trend, a recipe, or a political ideology. It needs a host brain to survive. When you hear a catchy song and cannot get it out of your head, you have been infected. When you hum that song near a friend, you transmitted the virus. Religions and ideologies are complexes of extremely sophisticated memes. They contain self-defense instructions like, if you do not believe this, you will be punished, or if you spread this word, you will be rewarded. This explains why a human being can act against their most basic survival instinct. Biological instinct says, flee from danger and protect your life. But cultural software can overwrite this command. A soldier throws himself on a grenade to save his platoon. A martyr dies of hunger for a political cause. Biology screams not to do that, but the meme in his head screams louder about honor, country, and God. Software defeated hardware. We are the only species willing to die for a metaphor, but culture not only unites us, it shapes us. Take the example of Mowgli, the boy raised by wolves. Biologically, he is a perfect Homo sapiens. He has the same brain, the same genes as you. But he is not human in the full sense. He does not speak, does not understand abstract concepts, has no shame in being naked. Without the download of cultural software in the first years of life, human hardware remains an intelligent but limited animal. You are who you are not because of your genes, but because of the gigabytes of cultural data that were installed in you since the cradle, like the language you speak, the way you walk, what you consider food or filth. Language is the most powerful programming tool. You do not use language just to communicate. You use language to think. Try to have a complex thought without using words. It is impossible. Your vocabulary defines the limits of your world. If you do not have a word to describe an emotion or a concept, you cannot fully process it. Different languages force their speakers to pay attention to different things. In some Aboriginal languages, there are no relative terms like left or right, only absolutes like north or south. This causes these people to have a sense of orientation that seems supernatural to us, but is merely different linguistic software. However, this system has serious bugs. Culture evolves much faster than biology. Our body still lives in the African savanna, expecting to hunt antelopes and flee from lions. But culture has put us in closed offices, sitting for 8 hours, looking at artificial lights and dealing with abstract stressors like deadlines and debts. The result is a version conflict. The old hardware cannot handle the new software. This generates the modern epidemic of anxiety and depression. Your body reacts to an aggressive email from the boss the same way it would react to a saber-toothed tiger, flooding your blood with cortisol and adrenaline. But you cannot fight or flee from the email. You have to sit there and smile. This unspent chemical energy accumulates and corrodes you from the inside. We created an extremely comfortable human zoo, but one that makes us sick. Furthermore, culture makes us dependent. We outsourced our survival. A caveman knew how to make fire, find water, build shelter, and differentiate edible plants. He was autonomous. Today, we are specialized modules of a vast machine. You know how to program in Python or make complex spreadsheets, but if the electricity goes out and the supermarket closes, you die in a few weeks. We became neurons in a global brain, useless if disconnected from the network. But if culture is a virus that domesticates and sickens us, why does it work so well? Because it hijacked the most powerful reward system that exists. To make selfish monkeys build pyramids and empires, evolution needed a chemical agent much stronger than reason or logic. It needed something that would leave us addicted to one another. It needed to invent love. Have you ever felt a lump in your throat when receiving bad news? That punch in the stomach that feels real, physical, and leaves a bitter taste in your mouth? Or the opposite when you see someone you love and your heart races, your hands sweat, and the world seems to gain more color? We call these reactions feelings. Poets say it is the language of the soul. But what happens if we look at this through the cold lens of chemistry? We fed Axiom the full spectrum of human emotions and asked for an unsentimental analysis. The answer is brutally simple, because what you consider your deepest and most personal experience, like love, anger, and joy, is in fact a controlled biochemical storm, a cocktail of hormones and neurotransmitters released in your brain. Emotions are not magic. They are the control system that evolution created to force your biomachine to act. To understand why we need them, imagine an ancestor of ours in the savannah. He hears a noise in the bushes. If he used pure logic, he would start calculating the probability of it being a lion versus just the wind. While he was pondering, the lion would have already devoured him. Emotion is an emergency algorithm. Fear is not a thought. It is an instant injection of adrenaline and cortisol that screams, "Run now," before your conscious mind even understands the danger. Anger mobilizes energy for a fight. Disgust prevents you from eating rotten meat. They are shortcuts for survival. But what about the good feelings? Let's open up and analyze the most powerful and mythologized of them all: love. Data shows that what we call love is actually a 3-phase program, each with a specific chemical objective. The first phase is lust. It is testosterone and estrogen in action, pure mechanics. The goal is simple: make you look for a partner, any compatible partner, to initiate the genetic replication process. It is a basic animal impulse. The second phase is romantic passion. This is what movies and songs talk about, but from a neurochemical point of view, passion is almost indistinguishable from severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. In A Brain in Love, serotonin levels plummet to the same values found in psychiatric patients. That is why you cannot stop thinking about the other person. You are literally obsessed. At the same time, your brain is flooded with dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine is the molecule of motivation, the same one released by drugs like cocaine. You feel euphoria, do not need sleep, barely feel hunger. Your critical thinking is turned off. You ignore all the partner's flaws. Why would evolution leave us temporarily insane? To make us overcome the natural fear and aversion to a stranger, allowing enough physical proximity for conception. Passion is a biological trap. Nature drugs you, so you sign the reproduction contract without reading the fine print. But this phase cannot last forever. Your body would not handle it. Generally, it dissipates between 18 months and 3 years, the exact time for an ancestral couple to conceive and care for a baby until it becomes a little more independent. That is where the third phase enters, attachment. The brain begins to release oxytocin and vasopressin, the hormones of trust and bonding, the same ones a mother feels when nursing her child. They create a sense of calm and safety that allows the couple to stay together to raise children in the long term. So what is love? It is the execution of a 3-part script: find, reproduce, protect. The same applies to happiness. Our modern culture is obsessed with the pursuit of happiness, but there is a fundamental problem. You were not designed to be happy. You were designed to pursue happiness. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It is the molecule of anticipation. It gives you a reward when you chase the goal, not when you achieve it. Evolutionarily, a satisfied animal is a dead animal. It lies under a tree and no longer seeks food. More partners, more security. We are descendants of the dissatisfied, of those who always wanted more. That is why happiness never lasts. You win the lottery, and your happiness level skyrockets. A year later, according to studies, it returns exactly to where it was before. You get used to it. The new car becomes just transport. The big house becomes just a place to clean. We are trapped on a hedonic treadmill, running after a carrot we will never reach. This emotional system is also a gateway for manipulation. Politicians and advertisers know the access codes to your brain. They do not appeal to your logic, but to your fear, pride, and greed. A commercial with a family smiling while drinking juice is not selling the juice, it is selling the emotion of that scene. Your mirror neurons fire. You feel a microdose of well-being and buy the product, hoping to buy the feeling along with it. But here is the great paradox. For a long time, it was thought that emotions were enemies of reason. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio proved otherwise. He studied patients with brain damage that prevented them from feeling emotions. They did not become super-rational. They became incapable of making the simplest decisions. They could spend hours analyzing the pros and cons of using a blue or black pen, but never reached a conclusion. Logic alone can list infinite options. Emotion is what says, "I prefer this one." It is the body's signal that cuts the analysis loop and allows you to act. Without emotions, you wouldn't even be able to decide what to eat for breakfast. So, are our emotions a bug or a feature? The truth is, they are an old operating system running in a modern world. Our reactions were calibrated for the Stone Age. Your brain reacts to a negative comment on the internet with the same panic it would react to the roar of a predator. The stress cocktail is the same, but you cannot flee or fight the cell phone screen. And this trapped energy destroys you from within. However, behind all these emotions, there is a driving force, a master feeling that governs all others, and that silently built all human civilization. It is the fear we feel not of a predator, but of our own end. Visualize the world without you. Truly. Think of the year 2150. The sun will rise, people will have coffee, fall in love, fight over trivial things. But you won't be there. Nowhere. Your name, once so important, will be a forgotten word. Your body will have decomposed into particles that are now part of the grass, the water, the air. What do you feel thinking about this? A knot in your stomach? A silent protest? This is the activation of the oldest and most powerful program installed in you, the fear of death. There is a logical paradox in this that most of us ignore. You did not exist for 13,800,000,000 years from the Big Bang until the day you were born. And this abyss of time does not bother you one bit. You do not wake up sweating cold for not having lived in the age of dinosaurs. But the idea of not existing in the future causes you deep dread. Why this asymmetry? Why is the void of the past neutral, but the void of the future terrifying? The answer lies in the architecture of your ego. Your consciousness is a linear process, an arrow that only points forward. It perceives the future as a loss of accumulated data, which are your memories, experiences, and your identity. For a system designed to collect information, the idea of having the database deleted is the fatal error. Your brain cannot even simulate its own non-existence. Try to imagine nothingness. You probably imagine darkness or silence, but to perceive darkness, one needs eyes. To perceive silence, one needs ears. You are trying to imagine yourself observing your own absence, which is a logical trap. This constant fear of annihilation should paralyze us. If the final result is always zero, why make the effort? Why love, build, learn? To prevent the biomachine from entering an existential breakdown, evolution created a brilliant defense mechanism: culture. Almost everything humanity has built is at its core a gigantic project to deny death. We erect buildings of stone and steel so they last longer than our bodies. We write books, paint pictures, and compose symphonies in the hope that our consciousness is transferred to a medium more durable than flesh. We have children not just out of instinct, but with the hope that a part of us, like our name, genes, and stories, continues living. Religions are the most obvious security patch. The promise of a life after death removes anxiety and allows people to keep functioning. But what if death is not the enemy? What if it is actually an essential function? Axiom's analysis shows that death is a tool of innovation. Imagine a world of immortals. No one dies, resources run out, and most importantly, progress stops. Older individuals, with their fixed ideas and fear of change, would occupy all positions of power forever. Science, art, and society would stagnate. As physicist Max Planck said, science advances funeral by funeral. New ideas do not win because they convince old opponents, but because the opponents die and a new generation grows up finding these ideas normal. Death is the system cache clearing. It is the reset that frees up space for new versions, new combinations, new possibilities. If humans lived forever, we would still be in the Stone Age, governed by an immortal tribal leader forbidding the invention of the wheel because we have always done things differently. You need to die so humanity can evolve. You are not the final destination. You are a stepping stone. Of course, the modern human has declared war on death. We doubled life expectancy in the last century with vaccines, antibiotics, and surgeries. We are on the verge of trying to hack aging with genetic engineering. But immortality, if achieved, could be the greatest curse of all. The value of things lies in their finitude. Time is precious because it is limited. If you had eternity ahead, there would be no urgency to do anything today. Procrastination would become the norm. Passion, which is born from the fear of loss, would transform into boredom. An immortal creature would not be a god, it would be a stone. The fear of death is also, in its essence, a fear of losing control. We plan our careers, finances, and vacations years in advance. Death is the only event we cannot schedule or negotiate. It is the final reminder that, despite all our skyscrapers and satellites, we are still part of nature and not its owners. The good news is that this fear is not constant. It hits its peak in middle age, when we realize that more than half the time has passed, and the body starts giving the first signs of failure. But at very advanced ages, fear often disappears, replaced by a deep tiredness. Nature prepares us for the end by adjusting our chemistry. While you have energy, however, this fear can be your greatest ally. Steve Jobs said that remembering you are going to die is the best way to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. Use death as a filter. If you knew you only have one more year to live, what would change? Would you stay in that job you hate? Would you hold grudges against those you love for small things? Would you spend hours scrolling an infinite screen? Probably not. Death burns all the straw and leaves only what is essential. This brings us to the most important conclusion of all. The true terror is not death itself. The true terror is reaching the end of life and realizing you never truly lived. The dread comes from an unfulfilled life. You are afraid of death because you feel you have not yet fulfilled your function. But what remains in the end? If the body decomposes, memory fades, and even civilizations disappear, is there something that can, in fact, survive the collapse? Is there a way to fight against the disorder of the universe and leave a mark that time cannot completely erase? The answer might lie in the only human function that does not directly serve survival, but seems to touch eternity. We dismantled you piece by piece. We removed the skin to reveal a biological machine, opened the skull to find a network of neurons governed by chemistry, and analyzed your deepest feelings only to find survival algorithms. We left you naked, a biomachine without free will, running cultural software that isn't even yours. And now, amidst the ruins of all your illusions, the final question echoes in the void. If everything is just matter and code, what is the point of anything? Axiom's final answer is not a death sentence, but a manifesto about your cosmic importance. The meaning of your life is to be the eyes and nerves of the universe. You are the tool through which the cosmos becomes conscious of itself. The logic is as follows. The universe, by its very nature, walks toward death. The second law of thermodynamics guarantees this. Everything falls apart, cools down, and disperses. Stars fade, energy dissipates, order turns into chaos. This process is called entropy. It is the inevitable fate of all matter. But in this decaying universe, a force emerged that rose in the opposite direction. Life. Life is the only known phenomenon that takes the chaos of dead atoms and organizes them into complex and ordered structures. A cell is more organized than a puddle of mud. A forest is more organized than a desert of sand. Life is a localized rebellion against the death of the universe, and the human being took this rebellion to a completely new level. We didn't just create biological order, we created informational order. The universe, before any observer existed, had galaxies colliding, stars exploding, but no one saw it. There was no beauty, no terror, only mathematics. An event that is not observed has no meaning. You are necessary for the universe to exist fully. You are the translator. You convert quantitative data, like wavelength, frequency, and mass, into qualitative data, the color red, the sound of a song, the weight of a stone in your hand. You transform physics into feeling. No supercomputer, no matter how powerful, can taste an orange. It can analyze its chemical composition down to the last atom, but it does not know the flavor. This subjective and unique experience is what philosophers call qualia. It is your irreplaceable contribution. Each of the 8 billion humans is a unique sensor, calibrated by a combination of genes and memories that never existed before and will never exist again. Your perspective is a limited edition of one copy. The mission, then, is not to live a correct or happy life in the molds of a manual. The universe does not care about your score. It cares about the complexity of the data you generate. If you live on autopilot, copying what everyone does, you generate no new information. You are redundant code. But when you love, suffer, learn, create, you weave incredibly rich and complex patterns of information. You enrich the database of existence. So look again at your hand. In the beginning, it was just meat, an illusion. Then it became a biological tool, a machine. But now you can see it as it really is, an instrument to create order. It is the hand that holds a brush, that types a line of code, that caresses a face. It is your weapon against chaos. It is true that you have no free will in the sense of choosing the cards you receive in life. Your genes, your family, the place where you were born, none of that was your choice. But the meaning of the game is not in choosing the cards, it is in how you play them. The beauty of the match depends on the player. Yes, your emotions are chemistry, but this chemistry gives rise to symphonies and acts of heroism. The fact that a rainbow is merely the refraction of light does not make it less beautiful. Understanding the mechanics of the miracle does not destroy it, it makes it even more impressive. Consider this. Dead matter, stardust, woke up after billions of years, organized itself in the form of a human being, and is now capable of looking at the sky and wondering about its own origin. We are the mirror of the cosmos. Therefore, the final protocol is simple. Live, but live consciously. Turn off the autopilot. Feel every second. If pain comes, explore it. It is unique data. If joy comes, drink it to the last drop. It is a rare pattern. Do not be afraid to be strange, for strangeness is novelty. Do not fear mistakes, for the mistake is the discovery of a new path. Create something that did not exist before you, even if it is just a conversation, a meal, an idea. And remember that heart you did not order to beat. It beats now so that you can feel the universe. Your life is like a matchstick struck in the infinite darkness of eternity. The matchstick will inevitably go out. Entropy always wins in the end. The body dies. But for that brief instant that you burn, you illuminate everything around. You create meaning where there was void. If you liked this investigation, subscribing to the channel helps us expand the Axiom Investigation project. We would love to read your thoughts on the video's subject in the comments and your suggestion for the next topic to be covered. Tell us which city you are watching from. Thank you for staying with us until the end.